This week, the US Department of Defense dropped a bombshell update to its so-called Section 1260H list, blacklisting a staggering 188 Chinese entities, including household names like Baidu and Alibaba, claiming they're military companies. The Western media is in a total frenzy, with outlets like The Guardian and the BBC screaming about these firms aiding Beijing's military prowess. But if you look for the evidence, even The Guardian admits the Pentagon's filing did not provide evidence that these companies were actually linked in any way to the Chinese military. So is an e-commerce site or a car maker really a wing of the army? Or is this just a desperate attempt to sabotage China's most successful tech giants because the US simply cannot compete fairly anymore? Today we'll go beyond the propaganda and look at the blatant double standard here, where the world's biggest arms dealers in the West are called free market, while Chinese innovators are labelled as military threats. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Borham here in Shanghai. Let's get reporting. First up today, huge apologies for my lack of content over the past 2 weeks. I've been away filming a short documentary series in Xinjiang, and then I attended the Third World Conference of Sinologists in Dunhuang in Gansu province. First, let's take a really quick look at my Xinjiang series, which is out soon. Exactly 5 years ago, I visited Xinjiang to make 2 short travel videos. Half a decade later, I'm visiting Kashgar and Urumqi again to see how things have changed. I found myself blocked from filming mosques, met kids forced to learn another language, encountered citizens working for much less than a fair wage, and so much more. The Western media has led the world to believe that Xinjiang people are the victims of genocide, forced into slave labour, banned from celebrating their religion, and forced to stop speaking their own language. But trust me, it's exactly the opposite of what you imagine. My name's Andy, a New Zealander who's lived in China for more than 10 years. Come with me as I explore 2 of Xinjiang's most famous cities for the second time. Hopefully the first episode will be out very shortly. After that, I was in Dunhuang at the Sinologists Conference organised by the Chinese Association for International Understanding. It was an action-packed few days with addresses by Lu Kang, Vice Minister of the International Department of the CPC Central Committee, who welcomed the 300 sinologists from more than 70 countries, and international representatives like Mulatu Teshomiwurtu, former president of Ethiopia, who completed much of his university study here in China. Now, Dunhuang is the location of the conference since that place has 2,000 years of history as the crossroads of Chinese and Western culture, and a place where ideas and stories were shared. So in a way, Dunhuang was the birthplace of what we call sinology today. Very interesting. Okay, back to today's topic. The Pentagon has updated its blacklist of Chinese companies it accuses of having ties with the PLA significantly, jumping from roughly 130 entities last year to 188 today. The list now targets the very heart of China's high-end manufacturing and emerging tech, including AI, semiconductors, and robotics. According to the Pentagon, these companies are military because they have affiliations with China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, the body that regulates all industrial policy in the country. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian was quick to point out the absurdity, stating that the US is overstretching the concept of national security to unreasonably suppress Chinese enterprises. The Global Times editorial went a step further, calling it an absurd farce, and noting that the list has become a roll of honour for China's most competitive companies, effectively acknowledging their global success. Let's look at the real motives behind this move. Commentator Nuri Vatachi describes it as economic warfare. He points out that the US is terrified of losing its lead in artificial intelligence, despite currently holding over 5,400 data centers compared to China's 375. By blacklisting these firms, Washington is using economic coercion to force its vassal allies to follow suit, while simultaneously hurting US investors who are now barred from some of the fastest growing enterprises in the world. Geopolitical analyst Brian Berletic provides a crucial perspective on the national security pretext. Now, he argues that even if these companies did have ties to the military, the People's Liberation Army is not the aggressor on the world stage. Unlike the US military, which has spent the 21st century bombing, invading, and occupying other nations, the Chinese military has not attacked or invaded a single nation in the entire century. As Berletic puts it, the only real danger the Chinese military poses is to illegal US encroachment near China's own shores. The actual trajectory here isn't about safety, it's about encirclement, containment, and desired primacy over China's rise. Now let's talk about the staggering double standards here. The US government and Western media want you to believe that a Chinese EV maker is a military threat, yet they stay silent about the true giants of the military-industrial complex in the West. Take Lockheed Martin, the world's largest defense contractor, which pulls in roughly $44.5 billion in US Department of Defense contracts annually to build F-35 fighter jets and missiles. Or Boeing, which makes billions from Apache attack helicopters and military tankers, while simultaneously selling commercial jets to the world. And then there's Raytheon, which builds Tomahawk missiles, but is considered civilian because it also makes jet engines for commercial airliners. These Western firms are deeply integrated with the military, sharing technologies and executives through a revolving door at the Pentagon. Yet because they are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, they're framed as civilian and free public corporations. As the Global Times editorial asks, if we used this bandit logic consistently, shouldn't Coca-Cola be blacklisted for using advanced AI to analyze global data? Why are US tech giants who hold massive Pentagon contracts never labeled as threats to national security by the rest of the world? This blacklist strategy is an admission that Washington can no longer win through fair competition. They're treating Chinese technology as a whole as an arena for strategic competition. They fear that Chinese startups are gaining the capacity to reshape the global industrial landscape, from BYD surpassing Tesla to Alibaba leading in cloud innovation. But as many analysts suggest, this administrative suppression is doomed to fail. The rise of Chinese companies is driven by genuine market innovation. Every time the US blocks a sector, it only pushes the Chinese industrial chain towards greater self-reliance. In the long run, these measures don't make the US safer. They simply disrupt the international economic order and undermine global supply chains. So basically, Western media is laundering unsupported Pentagon allegations to justify economic sabotage. They ignore the peaceful record of the Chinese military compared to the US war machine, and they turn a blind eye to the massive military ties of their own corporate giants. And on that note, that will be all for today, you guys. But as always, I would love to hear your thoughts. Is it fair to label an e-commerce site or an EV maker a military company without providing any evidence? Why is Western media so silent about the military-industrial complex in the US? Let me know down below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.